Hello, welcome to this tutorial. I'm Morris Dimba, and today I'm going to show you a quicker way to create a truss in Tekla structures, and we'll get started here. If you take a look on the screen, you can see a grid already in place, and this is a very simple thing, should not give you a headache to create. Let me first of all bring my XYZ axis to a default. Let me just come to view here and come to workplane tool and just place it somewhere right there. Now I want to start by creating first the columns, or what we can do, we can just create first our truss, then we'll bring it up on top of our column, because that is the critical part that we need to do first. Now I'll come to applications and components here, and just type truss here, and I'll type truss. I'll double click on truss right there. Now this is a macro I'm going to use to create a macro, and these are the parameters that we'll use to control all the parameters. We have the paths here, we have the parameters here, the couplet here. The couplet means the end of this. Maybe you are using HSH or RSH. You can use a couplet at the end of that profile, just to close the hollow section part of that. And we have the parameters here. You set how you want your internal members to be arranged, and the angle of your truss, all being manipulated here, or can be manipulated here. And parameters tab and parts also, you can change the sections you want to use for top and bottom, code and struts or internal members. Now this is the image or a preview of how your truss will look like. In this case, I have already made a template for myself, and this one I'll just pick it right here, and I'll click load this, and all the settings will be available for me. And if you want to try on these, just I can give you time to pick everything. You pick all these parameters, and I'll come to sections here, because here I've used, on the top code I've used 70 as HS, and for top code, and the bottom the same, and the internal members have used 40 by 40 by 4 millimeter as HS. That's the way it looks. Now the internal members, this is where you control everything. And first of all, let me just put down something that will make you see whatever I'm doing. Now let me just snap on that spot and snap on this spot. Let me do it accurately. Double click on that, and I'll default on my template, and I'll click modify. Then I want to zoom this close so that I snap accurately on that point, and stretch all the way and snap right here. I'll give it some time to load the truss. There we are, and I'll right click and come to interrupt and close that. Now this is what we have as a default, and we want to change everything to our own settings. This is what we have as a default. Now I'll double click on this, then I'll come here and pick my preset, the customize setting for myself. Then I'll click load. Then once I've done that, I'll just click modify and give it some time to apply my settings or my configured truss, and this is how it will look. This is my truss, and now let me just close this and close this, so that we have a clear view of what I'm doing, and this is how it looks. I'll right click and click redraw, and this is how it looks. So we have our truss here, and this truss is split into two, half span into half span for easy erection or installation on site. Now if I mouse over this or click, you'll be able to see it's a block, and you cannot click on individual members. And there's a way on how you can disable that, so that you work on individual members separately, or if you want to customize this truss further, I'll show you that. And let me just zoom at this end, and I'm satisfied with what I've seen, and this is what I want to customize and make it much better than this. The next step is now just to disable the assembly by clicking this select object in the assembly. I'll disable that, the assembly part. Now I'll be able to pick on individual parts. I'll want to delete that. I don't want that member there, and I don't want this member here. I'll delete that member, and I'll come all the way to this end. Also, I'll delete that member. So if I bring back the assembly, if I mouse over this, you'll be able to see everything is being selected as a block once again, but without the other members that have removed. Now the next step now is, now I want to bring this end plate connection here to this end, to this bottom end, so that once the welding has been done at the workshop, this can be carried separately and be installed in an easier way on site without so much manpower in during the erection on site. Now what do we do now? Just first of all disable this. Then I'll come back here and click navigate here, and we want to rearrange these bolts because there's some clashes here we can see by just taking a look on this. Now let's bring back the assembly so that we can work on this at a go one go. Let me just double click on these bolts first so that we change the sizes. We want to use M16 here, and I'll go ahead and click modify, and I'll bring washers that right there and click that way. But if we see center to center brings this to very close to this top chord here, so we don't want this. We don't want this collision at the top here. So what we want to increase, we want to increase the center to center dimension of these bolts so that it doesn't come closer to the top chord of this truss. Now how do we do that? Once we've broken up the assembly, now it will make it easier for us now to change the center dimensions of these two bolts here. Now first of all, let's disable the bolts right there so that we can click on the individual bolts here. Now I'll click on that, then right click and come to special move. I'll click linear right there, then I'll check my XYZ axis. Where is it facing? It's facing on the other end. It's facing me right here. It is on Y axis. Now on Y axis, now what we'll do, we'll change everything to 0, and a move command, and on linear move. Now I'll go straight to Y axis right here and just type 10 or 5 because I want to be able to control the dimensions properly. Now I'll come to Y axis, then click move twice, that is 10 millimeter offset. Now I'll come to navigate and check whether that is the best way or the correct position we intend to place the bolts right there. That's okay, we can leave it at a 10 offset. Then we go up here and do the same thing the other end, but in this case we have our axis, Y axis, facing the opposite way. So what we'll do, we will prefix our 5 millimeter by negative sign because we are moving on the opposite direction of Y axis. Now I'll click move right there twice, that's 5 millimeter, then I'll add another 5 to make it 10 millimeter offset. Now I'll come to navigate there and rotate this. This is how it looks. We'll do the same thing at the bottom end here. I'll click on that, right click and come to move special and click linear. Then I'll remove this negative sign because I want to move this bolt this direction. So I'll remove the negative sign because we are moving on the positive direction of the Y axis. Now I'll click it once, that is 5 millimeter. You can see it here because by default Tekla works with works in metric. Now I'll add another 5 to make it 10 millimeter offset. Now I'll go to the end also and do the same thing. I'll click on this bolt again and prefix this by negative sign and go ahead and click move and add another 5 to make it 10 millimeter offset. Now we want to offset these bolts again up. Now I'll pick on these, then press Ctrl and pick the other end, then right click and come to special copy and click linear, and I'll come now to Z axis here. After changing everything to 0, I'll come to Z axis and feed 5. So I want to give an offset of interval of 555 meters so that you'll be able to control your offsetting distances from the original spot to the next position, again to the next position. Now let me just go ahead and click 5 millimeter right there. You can see the movement. Then I'll add another 5 to make it 10, and that is the best position because we have an offset of 10 10 10 both ways. Now I'll click OK and do here, and come here and do the same thing and click the two bolts by pressing Ctrl, then right click and come to move here and click linear, then come to Z-axis. Now we are moving in the opposite direction of the Z-axis because the initial offset was in the positive direction of the Z-axis. Now we are moving downward. Now I'll prefix this by negative sign, then I'll click move. That's first offset of 5 millimeter distance, and then I'll add another 5 right there. That makes 10. Good. Now I'll come to navigate, and I'll pick the point. I'll pick a point. I'll pick my rotation point, then I'll press my left button on the mouse and I'll be able to turn that round, and right click and click interrupt just to terminate that command. Now I want to bring this connection down at the bottom end here so that it makes mid-span. It makes this mid-span and mid-span able to be assembled on site to make a complete truss. Now what do? You can see down here a symbol of weld, and we want to remove this. Another thing, if you can see now I'm trying to select on this, and you cannot see anything getting selected because we've disabled any kind of selection here while we are doing the bolting offsets. Now I'll enable everything here by clicking select all. You can see when I mouse over this button here, you can see turn all selection switches. I'll switch on that, and everything will be back to selection. Now I'll come here and select it. What I forgot was the distance from the top cord to the bottom cord was 2 meters. Now what I'll do, I select these two bolts, the two plates, by pressing Ctrl here. Then I want to bring it down by 2 meters so that I can I'll be able to connect both plates to the bottom cord of our truss. Now I'll come to copy here, then click linear, then under y-axis. Now I'll remove everything here. Then I'll go to y-axis, z-axis, and prefix it my 2 meters by a negative sign. Then I'll click copy right there, click OK. Now if you move down here, you can be able to see we have plates, but we don't have bolts because we've disabled the bolts. So the bolts have not been carried together with the plates. Now what we'll do, just enable the bolt selection, or we select everything here. We didn't select the bolts, it select everything here. Press Ctrl, select on that, select that bolts, then right click and come to special copy here and click linear. Then our dimension, our offset dimension still in place. It has not been disregarded or removed from our selection. I'll go ahead and click copy, and we'll go straight and check whether everything has been carried. Actually, everything is here, and we want to bring it, and we want to bring it to the center of these two members. You can see if I mouse over this side and I mouse over this side, you can see we have these two spans separated. It's not a full member running across center to center of the column. Now let's click on that weld and remove that, and we want now to manipulate these two plates to go straight to the center of these two members. Now I'll come to edit here and pick on the first at any position here, then pick the center here. What we need, just the guidance that will help us take these two plates at the center of these two members. Now I'll snap right here, then I'll snap right here, then I'll pick on this. I'll right click and come to copy and pick on this, then I'll move right to the center of that member. You can see now we have this at the center. Now what do we do now? We still don't have the points that will make us have the full control in moving these two plates and bolts. What do we do? We'll just again come to the center here. We'll come to the center here and place that member at the center. Now this is the point that might bring some confusion, but if you follow this keenly, you will not be able to get lost. Now I'll select this all the bolts and press Ctrl and pick the 2 plates right here, then right click and come to move here. I'll snap here, right here, and this is the point where we'll help this is the point that will help us move this to the right position. Let's try this whether it will work for us. Now I'll mouse over the center point of this, then place it right there. You can see if I come to view here and try to rotate this and try to turn this round, you'll be able to see it is in the right position. Now what do? We just now want to weld this member to this plate and this member to this plate. First of all, never forget to save your work every step you make, because you never know what might happen with the power or with your system. You end up losing everything, and you lose every effort you've placed or you've put in this particular job. Now I'll save that. Then I'll come to applications and components here. Then I want to go for the macro for welding. Now type weld right there. Just complete the weld, because every word you type, Tekla Stack will try to predict whichever macro you're trying to look for and bring a macro starting the same letter. Now I'll just finish the weld so that we have the stanchion weld here. We'll use this. Now I'll pick this member and pick that plate to create a weld which is not working properly. Now what do? I'll come to view here and turn this round. It has not been welded properly. I'll do that and click on this. Then I want to weld this to that. That is now working much better. Now I'll turn it round, then come to weld. You can check the procedure down here. You can see it. You're being asked pick the main part. Now our main part will be this plate. Pick the main part, then we pick the secondary part, which will be this section. Pick on that, then our welding will be done. So if I right click and click redraw, we will refresh everything and remove those symbols of macro connections, and this is how it looks. Now if I come here and select these 2 plates here and right click and come to hide, you'll be able to see there's a gap here. That this is a space. This is the space for our 2 plates, because our 2 plates is 10 millimeter thick. We can make it 8 or 6 millimeter. This is just to show you how to work in Tekla or how to create a truss in Tekla. Now let me just refresh to bring my plates back, and let me save this because I don't want to lose everything I've done. Now this is how it looks, and at the end here we want to weld this bottom chord to the top chord. Now I'll come to weld here, then pick the main part. We'll try to pick this as the main part and weld it to that. You can see the welding has been done neatly, and I'll come here and pick this as the main part and pick on that and select on the bottom chord, and the weld has been created perfectly well. So any remains of your weld, just remove, just select on that and delete that, and move the other end, and we have this. When we'll remove that by just selecting on it and delete, we have the cap plate here that closes the hollow part of our hollow sections. Remember we are using SHS for our top and bottom chord, and the internal members or struts for our trusses. Now we want to weld a plate between the top and bottom chord here, and we'll use this spot as our guidance to create the points that will help us create a plate. Now I'll come to at any position way of creating a point, then click on that and snap on that spot and move all the way up here and create a point right there. So prior to following the profile of the points we've created, make sure the points are falling accurately on the position that you intended to place a plate. Now I'll turn this round just to check whether this top point is falling right in the position. You can see it's slightly off the point, and this is what we are trying to avoid. Now I'll zoom in and counter check with the bottom end, and I'll come back to edit here and come to points and come to, at any position way of creating a point. Then I'll snap again at this position, then zoom out and make sure your point lies right in the right position. Just mouse over this and you can place your point there. I'm assuming it is in the right position. And what we can do now, we can click on this point and we want to offset it in this direction, in the opposite X direction, by 400 millimeter right there. Now once I've clicked on this, on the bottom point, I'll right click and come to special copy here and click linear. Then I'll delete the Z axis and change it to 0, and come to X axis and change it to 0. Then we're working with the X axis here on our XYZ axis, and this is the position where we want to feed in our measurement for the plate that will be welded at the bottom end of our plate, and this will help us in joining our truss to the top column of our structure. Now I'll first of all feed in the negative sign, then feed in the offset number, which is now 400 millimeter, and I'll come to copy. Right there you can see this point and this point. This space is 400 millimeter. I can confirm that by clicking on this point, snapping on that point, and snapping on that point, and you can confirm that the bottom end here is 400 millimeter right there. Now the next point, or the next step, is quite easy, because we want to make this 400 and the width be 290. Now what do we do here? We'll just select these 2 points, select on that point, and we'll turn this round like that and pick the first point. We want to copy this point here from that bottom end, and you will place it right there. Right click and terminate that command by clicking interrupt. Now we want to offset this. We want to offset this by 1. We want to offset this by half of 290, which looks like some bit of mathematics, a simple mathematics that we need to do. Now what we do with that, we'll first of all check this, the size of our bottom chord. This is how much? This is 70 millimeter. That is 70 millimeter, and we want 290. Now 290 will come on this point. Right click and come to copy and click on that. We'll offset this to 130 or maybe 100 right there, or 130. Just type 130 right there. Just type 130 and prefix that by negative sign and bring it and click OK. And this is how it looks. It is actually wrong, and this is not what we intend to do. And just click and do that, and click on that once again. Right click and click copy. The reason why I'm doing that, because it has gone in the opposite direction that we did not intend to give an offset to. We should have moved away in the direction of y-axis. Now we'll copy this. We'll copy that. We'll copy this here. We'll copy this in y-axis right here and paste it right here. We'll cut that and paste it on the y-axis right here. Paste it on the y-axis. I'll just write it here 130, then click copy. Perfect. It is on the opposite direction. There it is. And now what we can do, we can just pick this member, pick on that, right click and come to copy and pick it from that spot and zoom in and place it right here. Do you have a member there? We can now take this measurement from here to here. This is way bigger. This is 190 and we need 290. So what we'll do, just pick on this and add 50 offset this in the on the y direction by 50 right there, and click move that, and we can now delete this, or we can use this to copy this one here and right there, and now we'll delete all this. Now we'll pick on these two members, press Ctrl two points, right click and come to special copy here and click linear. Now we want to take them in the direction of y-axis. Now we have to delete we have to take them in the direction of x-axis. Now we have to get rid of the y-axis dimensions here. Now we'll feed this, we'll feed 400 here, feed 400 there in the opposite direction of x. Now we'll prefix this by a negative sign and click copy, right click and click OK. Then we'll come to view, and because we want to rotate this, you can also press Ctrl R, then pick the rotation point by pressing a middle button on the mouse, and you'll be able to rotate this. Remember, this is optional. Whichever way that makes you comfortable in rotating your model, use that. I'll come to steel here and pick plate, and I want to create a plate right there. I want to create this plate. Let me just zoom close, and I want to create a plate right there. I've created my plate, but somehow it's a slight clash with my bottom chord. Now what I'll do, I'll just click on I'll just double click on my plate here and come to the position and click this drop down arrow and pick behind, and that will shift it right at the bottom end. Will make the plate flash with the bottom end of our bottom chord. Now this is how it looks. And now we want to create some splices here, and this is how it will look. And I'll to create the splices, let me just delete this. I'll come to points again. It takes time, but the key point here is you learn something. That is the objective. And I'll come here to points and click on that, and these are the points. These points will help us create a plate. And how do we create that plate? We'll come to steel, we'll come to plate here, and I'll snap on that on these 2 points to close the polygon. I'll click on that and click on that, and close our polygon by clicking on the last point, and double click on that, because you can see the plate is way inside the two members, the top and bottom chord. And how to bring to make the plate flash with the two chords, top and bottom, we'll come to under position inside the contour plate properties dialog box, and come to behind option and click on that. It's still not flashing. We'll come to front, and you can see that flashing. Now we need the other end to also we want to place this plate to the other end, and instead of doing the same thing, we can use a different command to just mirror this. We'll just select on that, then we'll select a point that will be so accurate for us, so that when we do a mirror, that will be placed accurately in the other position. So what do we do? We want to change the position of our XYZ axis. Now I'll come to view here, then come to work plane tool, then I'll place my work plane tool right here. I'll place it here right there. Then prior to invoking any mirror command, make sure the object you intend to mirror is selected. Now right click and come to special copy and pick mirror, then zoom out, and pick the midpoint which works as your mirror point, and maybe I'll pick on that spot, and I'll snap right there and come. You can see the angle is 90 and the distance is slightly a bit 80 is 80, and click OK. Copy and click OK. Then if I zoom out and try to check whether what I've done is correct, I'll come to navigate and turn this round, and actually what I've done is what I expected to do, and that's okay. Click on empty screen to deselect everything you've done, and we want to do the same thing the other end. And to avoid repeating the same thing, because we want to place a bolt here, so we want to place the holes first, not the bolts. We want to place the holes first prior to mirroring the same to the other end. What do? We want first of all mark the plates. We first of all mark this plate to locate the points where we intend to place the holes. Now I'll come to edit, then come to points here and pick the first option of points online and click on that end to and click on that end to locate the midpoint of this plate. And once again, to get the midpoint of these two plates, of these 2 points, and another midpoint of these 2 points, just to locate my bolts, my holes for the bolts position. I'll come back again to points and pick these point and pick that point. You can see I've located a point between these 2 points, and come again and pick that point and snap right there. You can see I have a midpoint here. Now these are midpoints I'm going to use to place my holes for the bolts. I'll click on that hole, on that point, and select this point, then right click and come to special copy and click linear. Now I want to give an offset of these 2 points inside the plate by at least 50 millimeter or 35. Now what do? I'll delete any dimension that falls among these 3 axes, except the axis that I intend to use, but it must have the correct offset dimension that I want to use. In this case, I want to use the x-axis, but the offset you're seeing here is -400, which I don't intend to use. Now I'll feed the right offset. Now I'll use a negative sign prefix for this distance of 50. I'll feed that here, right there, and try and click copy. You can see it has gone slightly to the right position that I expected that to move to. Now, without taking a lot of time, what I'll do is very simple. Close this. I'll cancel that. Now I'll go to holes. I just type here holes. Then I'll get the right macro that will help me in creating a hole instead of using a bolt, because the bolt, if you remove the bolt, the hole get closed, and unless you explode that plate, which is not a good thing. Now I'll just show you another thing, how to do that. I'll double click on that macro here, and I had done this previously. So if you want to use an M16, or if you want to use an M16 here, the hole must be slightly bigger by 2 millimeter. In this case, we'll feed 18 there, and we'll use half of this 18 and prefix that by negative sign. We'll feed there 9, and also we'll feed here 9 millimeter. And what do we do? Our hole will be circular. That option is you can select here. We have rectangular and profile. But the two are frequently used, rectangular and circular. But rectangular is very rare option for someone to create a hole of a rectangle. For what purpose? Now I'll click circular, and we'll use our local coordinates. Now I'll go ahead and click modify. Now if you take a look on the corner here, you can see you're being instructed to pick the object that you intend to create a hole on. I'll pick this plate and press my middle button on the mouse and select the point I intend to create a hole on. Now you can see that. Pick the position. This is my position. I'll click on that and give it some time to process the information, and that the hole has been created. I'll come here also. Once you've created the hole, because it is created in a single step, then right click and click interrupt, click on empty screen to deselect that. Then you can go back and click OK and double click on that and pick that. Press your middle button on the mouse, because Tekla picks your first setting as a default. Now we'll not do that repeated again. We'll just leave the Tekla to use our previous setting as a default and to create the next hole. Then I click on that, and the hole has been created. Now I want to pick these holes or mirror these holes. The best option works much better for me, or I can use these 2 points to get the midpoint of the other end. How do I do that? I'll click on that and come to points here. I want to use another way of placing this component the opposite direction. I'll create a midpoint here. Then once I've done that, I'll select these holes by pressing Control and right click and come to copy. And what I'll do, I'll just pick that position and come all the way to that position and right click and turn this and check whether what I've done is correct. Actually what I've done is correct, and the distances between these bolts are accurate, and that can be confirmed by placing the center points of these two holes. Now what do? I'll right click on empty screen and right click and redraw. Remember, these plates are welded to the top and bottom chord. Now we are now okay with mirroring these three components the opposite direction. And prior to doing that, we have to change the XYZ axis position, and we'll come here and click work plane tool, and we'll place our XYZ axis right here, and make sure it falls in the right position. Make sure you are working on the right plane. Now I'll come here and select that, press Control and select the bottom plate, and select that plate, the other end. Then I'll right click and come to special copy here and pick the option, pick the mirror option here, and I'll pick the midpoint, which will be the midpoint in between these two plates, which will act as my mirror line. I click copy and click OK. Then if I zoom out, I'll be able to find all the three components that I was working on have been placed on this direction. Now I can do my welding of these components to the top and bottom chord. Now I'll type weld here just to get the weld macro. I'll pick on that, and I want to weld that to that, and I want to weld this to that plate. I want to weld this bottom chord to this plate, and that has been done. So I want to do the same thing the other end, because you can't do the weld then mirror that. It might create some collision. I'll weld this, not the right procedure. I'll weld this to that, and weld this to that, and weld this one to that plate. Right click and right click again and redraw to remove any signs of active macro. And this is how our truss looks. Now if we bring back the assembly and we mouse over this, you can see now it's one thing, but it has a different look from the default way of doing it. Now we want to add another strut here, joining to that and joining to that vertical member. Now what do? We disable the assembly first, and now we'll come to navigate here and pick that position as our rotation point, and we want to place, we come to edit right here and come and pick point, and pick any position right here, and create a point right there. Come to view here, pick, navigate, zoom out and pick rotation point, and our rotation point is that point I've just rotated. Now I want to get the midpoint of this internal member. How do you do that? Just click edit and click points here, and pick at any point, which is very important, or you can use online option of creating a point. Now we'll mouse over this member just to check the midpoint, and this actually the midpoint of this member. Will zoom out and snap right there, then go the opposite direction, snap there. We'll get the midpoint in the right position, and this is the point will help us make or create a member here. Now I'll double click on this member. You can see it's CHS 40 by 40 by 4 millimeter thick. Now what I'll do, reason why I'm double clicking on this, because I want to create a member and I want to default on the same member, because I don't want to go to profile catalog and start looking for 40 HSH. It's CSHS. Now I'll click modify, apply and accept. Now I'll come to steel and click beam, then snap on that spot and go all the way and snap on that position there. You can see we've created that, but not in the right position. What do we do? Because this happening because our XYZ axis is not in the right position, and we have to work on that properly. We'll get rid of this first, then we'll come here and rectify the XYZ position of our plane. We'll place it there, and we'll go over again and try to do whatever we did first. Now we'll come to edit, and come to points here. Click on that drop down arrow and pick the first option, because we want to pick to locate the midpoint of this member here. Now I'll mouse over this member here and snap on that end on a straight line. Make sure it is on a straight line, and right there it is. I'll apply and I'll click OK, and make sure once you create a point, make sure it is in the exact position you intended that point to be on. Now I'll come to steel and pick a beam right here and click on that. I'll come to view and turn this round and check whether I'm working and moving in the right position. There it is, and this is the member size. Make sure it is in the right position. Once again, I'm saying that. Double click on this, then come to position here, and you'll be able to shift this left and right. There it is, and it's not properly positioned. And how do we do that? We can either move it manually, or we can do we can use middle, and this is not working properly. This is not working properly, and how do we handle this? Apply, zoom out, and come to navigate here, and this is not perfectly moving well for us. We'll double click on it once again and come to move, and we'll change the depths here and click front. And what we'll do, we'll come to front again and pick middle, change this position to right, we'll try left there, and it could be the right position, and that is subject to confirmation, and we check what could be wrong, and we need to rectify this. Double click on that and come to position, and everything is not looking okay. What we've seen here, we can either change this to 0, we can change this to 0, we can change everything here to 0, change everything here to 0, just to make everything in the right position, and click modify, and that everything is correct. And if you come to navigate here, you can see it is straight and slightly off the point. Now I'll double click on this and come to position once again, and try to position this by picking the option of middle position, and click apply and accept that. And I think you've learned something there on how to reposition and position your member. Double click on that, and we come to depth and click front. We see that is the position the best for us. We'll come here and select on this, because we want to a same member mirrored the other end. And how do we do? We select that member and change our XYZ plane, and we'll come to work plane tool here and place our work plane tool in this position right there. Make sure the XY axis is facing the right position. Let me just mouse or place it right there. Then right click and come to mirror by picking the right option. Prior to snapping on your mirror points, make sure you are in the right position, and in this place, this is the position that I intend to use. And we have our member that on that end. This is where we are. Now I'll come to weld, and I want to weld this member, weld that to that, and I want to weld this to that, and I want to weld that to that, and weld this one to that one. Perfect. And right click and click on empty screen, right click and click redraw. That means you refresh everything to remove any signs of active macro in place. Now we want to bring back our XYZ to a default position right there. I'm going slow so that everyone gets the point clear, so that you don't lack the right information. Now we want to check the center to center of our plates. I'll come here and get the midpoint here, that distance and that distance. That is 1694, 169.54, or what we can use 169.50. That will be the span of our truss. or the distance between the columns. Now what I'll do, I'll just come here. And place my columns here. I'll come to steel and pick columns here, and I want to snap right here. I'll place my column right there. Double click on that. I'll rotate this back and click OK. I want to change this member to a different size by using the universal column. That is 250 by 25. That's okay. I'll click OK, apply, and that it's okay now. I'll pick on this, right click and come to mirror here, and I'll click on mirror, then go all the way, and I've realized I've just disabled my mirror plane. I'll come to view, I'll come to work plane tool here and place my mirror right here, and place my XYZ axis right there. Right click and select this beam. Once again, right click, select the beam, right click and come to special copy and click mirror. I'll come here and mirror that. I'll bring it somewhere there and click copy. We'll have this member at the other end. So once we have that in the other end, we will make sure these beams are right in the are positioned in the right position, and that will work much better for us. Now what do? We'll just bring back, we'll select everything here except the columns. And first of all, prior to doing that, our column by default height is 7 meters. Now I'll right click and come to move and click linear, and I'll offset this by 7 meters high. 7 meters high. I'll click OK. It has moved in the wrong direction because it is following our axis. So we want to work with the current axis. Right click and come and change and copy paste this 0 to y axis, because we've just changed our XYZ axis. Click OK, move, and that is how it works. It has clashed, and we'll click don't expand and click that, and now we'll disable that and we'll go back where we were. And what we'll do, we'll first of all enable the assembly, and now come to move and click linear and try and move it up. It's still clashing, so a problem now is we should have worked it up here, up the column, and we'll undo that. So what we'll do, we'll just pick it at the bottom end here, right click and come move, and pick it right at the bottom end here, which is not the best way to do that. We'll want to maneuver this. We want to make sure this works for us. Click move, select that, press Ctrl and select that, and click move. We want to move this into the right position. Now we'll come to navigate and turn this round, turn that round, and we want to move this column, this bottom end to this position right here, which is the midpoint of that. Perfect. Now I'll come to navigate and I want to rotate this. I want to rotate that, and it is still not flashing properly. Now I'll pick on everything here. First of all, I select everything here, or press Alt and select everything, and select copy, and I'll pick on that spot and move it somewhere here, and try whether it will work for us. It has worked for us, and this is how it will be. We will work on it. This is how it looks. Redraw that and come to navigate and rotate this. we left out this, and this should not be a big worry. We can always select on it, make sure what we have here is correct and what we have here is correct. Now we want to bring our plate by now we'll select on everything here, press Ctrl, select there, select the bolts, right click and come to special copy, and we want to copy it from this point here to make sure everything is landing in the right position. Then zoom out and take it right here, and this is how it will be. This is where it should be, and we have our connection right there. We can go ahead now and save that. Give it some time to save everything. Now we can bring back our assembly and select on this and delete everything so that we have our members up on top of our columns. Now what you can now manipulate is the grid positions. This how it looks, and this is the easier way to do it, though it has taken longer, and the key point is you get something and you've learned something. Thanks a lot for watching this video, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel. I'm always Don't forget to subscribe and like. Let's meet then. Bye bye.